The Whispering Spires **** From the moment Alara stepped onto the glass bridge that hung over the abyss of the celestial veil, she knew nothing in her life would ever feel ordinary again. The wind here carried secrets older than the mountains themselves, whispering in a language she almost understood but couldn't fully grasp. Her fingers brushed the smooth railing, and a shiver of anticipation ran through her, not from fear, but from an unexplainable recognition, as if the bridge itself had been expecting her. Below, the mist curled like a living thing, weaving between the jagged cliffs, hiding the rivers that gleamed like threads of molten silver. Every step forward echoed with a faint resonance, a vibration that seemed to hum in tune with her heartbeat. Alara's journey had begun long before she even knew the destination. She remembered the day the first letter arrived, delivered by a raven whose eyes glimmered unnaturally under the twilight sky. The parchment smelled faintly of ozone and old cedar, and the words, inked in a flowing script, read simply, "The spires await the one who remembers the forgotten path." At first, she had laughed it off as a whimsical prank, but the raven's persistence, circling her home for 3 consecutive nights, convinced her otherwise. Each flap of its wings brought a ripple of certainty through her chest, as though the world itself was urging her toward this path she had never imagined. The journey to the celestial veil had been treacherous in ways the physical world could not measure. There were nights when the stars themselves seemed to shift and whisper, rearranging constellations in cryptic patterns that only revealed meaning when seen from the highest peaks. Travelers spoke in hushed tones of the veil's guardians, figures cloaked in shadows and light, neither fully present nor entirely absent, watching, guiding, sometimes testing the resolve of those who dared to come near. Alara had passed through villages where time seemed to bend, children speaking in riddles of futures she could almost see, and elders who hummed songs that turned the air into ripples of gold and violet. Everywhere she went, she felt the pull of something immense, unseen yet profoundly intimate, a tapestry of existence inviting her to take her place among its threads. Now, standing on the bridge, the first of the spires rose before her, piercing the sky like a shard of crystal. It shimmered, not merely reflecting light but bending it, refracting every color, into impossible shades that seemed to exist outside the human eye's ordinary perception. The spire's surface pulsed gently, like a heartbeat that resonated in tune with her own. She reached out, fingertips grazing the translucent stone, and felt a warmth spreading through her palm that traveled up her arm, awakening memories she had never lived but somehow knew. Names, faces, places, emotions, flashes of lifetimes layered one upon another flashed behind her eyes, each one carrying a whisper she could almost comprehend. A soft melody floated through the air, not heard by the ears but felt deep within the chest, vibrating in harmony with the pulse of the spire. It called to her, a voice of longing and promise intertwined. "Enter, seeker of truths, for what you seek is not lost but waiting," the melody seemed to say. Her breath caught in her throat, a mixture of awe and anticipation. This was not simply a journey across land. It was a passage into a dimension that defied ordinary logic, a realm where the very essence of reality could be shaped by those who dared to remember the forgotten ways. The entrance to the spire was not a door but a shifting wall of light and shadow. As Alara stepped closer, the surface rippled like liquid glass, revealing a narrow passageway that spiraled upward endlessly, yet somehow she felt she could traverse it in the time it took to blink. Each step brought new visions, gardens where flowers bloomed in colors unseen on earth, streams that flowed upward before cascading down in reverse, creatures that seemed made of pure thought rather than matter. Observing her with eyes that reflected not what she was but what she might become, she realized that every element here existed in a state of possibility, and the spire itself was not merely a structure but a living testament to creation's boundless potential. Time became irrelevant as she climbed. Alara felt herself shedding old fears, doubts, and expectations, each layer falling away until only the essence of her purpose remained. At intervals, she would pause, and the spire would present her with vision scenes from distant worlds, fragments of forgotten stories, the rise and fall of civilizations, the quiet moments that defined destinies. She saw herself reflected not as a single being but as a collection of choices, moments, and intentions, interwoven with countless others across the vast fabric of existence. And in each reflection, she sensed a question waiting, unspoken yet urgent. Are you ready to remember what was never truly forgotten? When she finally reached the summit, the spire opened into a chamber bathed in light that had no source, no shadows, only an omnipresent radiance that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. In the center floated an orb of translucent energy, rotating slowly, radiating a warmth that felt like home and discovery combined. As Alara approached, the orb pulsed in response to her presence, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that mirrored her heartbeat. She reached out, and as her fingers brushed the surface, a flood of knowledge poured into her consciousness. Not as words or images but as an understanding that transcended language. She learned of the spires, ancient constructs built by a civilization that had mastered the art of channeling intention into reality. They were designed to awaken those who had the capacity to see beyond the veil of ordinary perception, to bridge the worlds of thought and form, imagination and reality. The orb imparted fragments of this knowledge, teaching her that every step in her life had led to this moment, that every decision, every longing, every dream was a thread in the grand tapestry of existence. And with this revelation came a challenge: to carry the memory of these truths into the ordinary world, to awaken others without breaking the delicate balance between wonder and comprehension. A sound, faint but insistent, pulled her attention to the far edge of the chamber. There, a figure appeared, neither fully formed nor entirely shadow, radiating a presence that was both comforting and formidable. "Welcome, Alara," it said, its voice weaving through her mind like sunlight through leaves. "You have come far, yet this is only the beginning. What you see here is the seed, but it is you who must nurture it, guide it, and protect it from fading into the ordinary. Are you prepared to bear the knowledge of what once was and what could be again?" Alara felt a tremor of doubt, fleeting yet profound. She had come seeking something extraordinary, but the weight of responsibility settled over her like a mantle she had never worn before. And yet, beneath the apprehension, a spark of exhilaration ignited. She understood, in a way that transcended thought, that life itself had been calling her to this purpose, weaving every moment into a design she could now glimpse. "I am ready," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. And in that moment, the chamber responded. The orb expanded, its light enveloping her, and the figure faded into the radiance, leaving her standing alone yet profoundly connected to everything around her. She felt her senses expand, perceptions sharpening, and an understanding blooming that would guide her through the paths yet unseen. As she descended the spire, each step carried her not just downwards but deeper into a comprehension of herself and the cosmos. The bridge she had crossed felt different now, alive in ways it had not been before. The wind carrying a resonance of encouragement, the mist swirling to form patterns that made sense only to those who had seen beyond the veil. Every element of the world seemed imbued with hidden purpose, as if the ordinary had been lifted to reveal the extraordinary waiting beneath. Alara knew that the journey ahead would not be simple. The spires were not merely a destination but a calling, and the world she returned to would require patience, wisdom, and courage to navigate. Yet she also knew that she had been chosen not to dominate, but to awaken, to remind, to reveal, to illuminate paths that had long been obscured by the mundane and the forgotten. The melody she had heard at the bridge now thrummed in her chest, a constant reminder of the harmony that existed when one aligned with the deeper currents of reality. And as the first light of dawn touched the peaks of the celestial veil, painting the mist with hues of rose and gold, Alara stepped off the spire with a clarity she had never known. Behind her, the spires shimmered, silent and patient, holding the secrets of eons within their crystalline heights. Ahead, the world awaited, vast and infinite, brimming with the unspoken promises of discovery, wonder, and the delicate balance between what was remembered and what was yet to be revealed. Somewhere deep in the veil, a wind carried her name, a whispering echo of the journey she had begun, a call to awaken not just herself, but all who dared to listen. And Alara, heart pounding with both awe and resolve, knew that the story she had stepped into was far from over. It was merely unfolding, one breath, one step, one revelation at a time. Alara had barely set foot beyond the spire when the landscape shifted beneath her. The ground, which moments ago had seemed solid and familiar, now flowed like liquid light, bending under the weight of the dawn. Trees arched and swayed with an intelligence of their own, their leaves glimmering with patterns that danced like fire across her vision. Each step she took resonated, not on stone or earth, but through some invisible network that connected every living thing. A pulse that reminded her she was not walking through mere terrain, but traversing a living memory. She felt the pull of the next spire even before she saw it. A faint tug at the edges of her consciousness, like the soft insistence of a tide calling her forward. The path led her through valleys filled with luminous flowers whose petals hummed with harmonic frequencies she could feel rather than hear. Tiny motes of light hovered around them, flickering like thoughts attempting to take form, and as she passed, some lingered, circling her in patterns that felt like messages encoded in geometry. She realized these were not simple plants or insects, but fragments of awareness, perhaps the echoes of past travelers, or of the spires themselves, recording the histories of all who had come before. Her heart raced with the realization that the world was alive in ways she had only begun to understand. A sudden shimmer in the air ahead caught her attention. She paused, and the mist parted to reveal a figure cloaked in iridescent threads that seemed woven from moonlight and shadow. Its face was obscured, yet Alara felt an immediate recognition, as if she had always known this presence. "You have taken the first steps," the figure said, voice layered with countless timbres, "but the path is not only yours to tread. Each choice resonates across the spires, awakening possibilities and shadows alike. Will you follow the path of clarity, or let the world shape you before you shape it?" Alara hesitated, sensing that her answer was both personal and universal. The figure extended a hand, and when she reached for it, the world around her fractured like a prism, revealing hidden corridors and realms coexisting alongside the one she had known. She glimpsed cities suspended in the air, rivers that flowed with liquid starlight, and beings made entirely of shifting colors and thought. Every glimpse brought questions she could not yet answer, yet the pull of curiosity outweighed any fear. She stepped forward, feeling herself unravel and reweave simultaneously, becoming part of the fabric she had only glimpsed moments ago. Arzor was at daze. Past as she traversed the undulating terrain, she encountered creatures that tested her perception, mirrors of her own consciousness. A fox with eyes of liquid crystal ran alongside her, its movements painting trails of memories in the air, and she realized that each being she met reflected not only the world's truths but her own potential to interpret them. A stream ran backward, yet the fish swam with purpose, guiding her gaze toward a cliff that rose impossibly high. At its summit, the third spire shimmered in hues she could not name, radiating a presence both intimidating and inviting. When she arrived, the spire revealed a chamber that pulsed with concentric rings of light, each spinning independently yet harmonizing with a rhythm she could feel in her chest. At its center floated a sphere smaller than the one in the first spire but no less potent, radiating a focused energy that seemed to probe her very essence. As Alara approached, memories she had buried surfaced, not painful but instructive, showing the patterns of her life's choices as if the spire itself understood the threads of her destiny better than she did. To ascend further, a voice intoned, "You must unlearn what you believe you know. Only by releasing certainty can clarity be revealed." Alara felt a tremor within herself, a questioning of everything she had assumed about reality. The mist that swirled around her coalesced into shapes echoes of her past decisions, faces she had met, roads she had taken and bypassed. She realized that this spire demanded more than physical presence. It required surrender to understanding, the willingness to accept that her existence was part of a vast symphony she could never fully control, only participate in. Hours passed in contemplation, yet no time could measure her growth. When she finally touched the sphere, it expanded and contracted with a pulse that matched her own heartbeat, infusing her with insight. She perceived how choices ripple across realms, how a single act of courage or hesitation could shape countless realities. A message crystallized within her mind. The spires were not a journey to be completed but a living dialogue, and she, now an interlocutor, carried the responsibility of translating their wisdom into a form the ordinary world could comprehend. Descending the spire, Alara felt herself changed. The valleys she crossed were no longer alien landscapes but mirrors of her own mind, each hill and river representing facets of thought and feeling she had yet to reconcile. The fox with crystalline eyes reappeared, leading her to a grove where light seemed to coalesce into tangible threads, and here she understood. Each thread represented a choice, a story, an intention. She plucked one and felt the vibration of possibility coursing through her veins. The next horizon revealed the fourth spire, taller than any she had seen. Its base was surrounded by a lattice of reflective pools, capturing fragments of other worlds, moments that might have been, could be, or were already fading into obscurity. Approaching it, Alara noticed that the pools reflected her not as she appeared but as she might become, shaped by the knowledge she carried and the choices she would yet make. Her reflection shifted subtly as she moved, offering glimpses of paths that diverged and converged with astonishing complexity. She understood that each spire would offer similar revelations, each a test of perception, courage, and insight. The chamber within this spire was darker, yet not in a way that invited fear. Instead, shadows danced with the light, revealing patterns invisible to the untrained eye. Alara moved carefully, each step an act of awareness, each breath synchronizing with the rhythm of the spire. At the center floated a prism of light, not spherical but multifaceted, refracting her thoughts into a cascade of understanding. She touched it and felt the whispers of 1,000 possibilities enter her consciousness, the weight of potential both exhilarating and humbling. Through this process, she realized the journey through the spires was a dance of balance. Insight without humility could lead to confusion. Courage without patience could unravel understanding. She felt her senses sharpen, perceiving connections and harmonies between life forms, thought patterns, and moments that had previously seemed disparate. Every interaction, every reflection, was a reminder that existence was a conversation, and she was now an active participant in a dialogue that transcended time and space. When she finally descended to the base, the wine carried a gentle, insistent hum. It was a melody she had heard faintly in the first spire but now resonated fully, threading through her being with clarity. Somewhere ahead, beyond the mists and luminous valleys, the fifth spire waited. She could feel it pulling her forward, a beacon not only in space but in purpose. And with every step toward it, Alara's understanding deepened. The spires were not obstacles or destinations, they were awakenings, each one revealing more of herself and the universe she had only begun to comprehend. The journey continued, and with it, the sense of wonder, responsibility, and possibility grew. The whispering of the wind, the play of light across reflective surfaces, the subtle vibrations beneath her feet all reminded her that she was part of something far greater than herself. And though the path was uncertain, and the revelations sometimes overwhelming, Alara felt a clarity she had never known. She was a traveler, a seeker, a witness, and a participant, moving ever closer to the truths that lay at the heart of the spires. Asterisk. As Alara stepped away from the fourth spire, the landscape itself seemed to shift with her awareness. Hills rose and fell in undulating waves, their surfaces reflecting light and shadow in intricate, impossible patterns. The wind carried scents and whispers that hinted at stories long forgotten, and every step resonated with a subtle vibration, a pulse that felt like a heartbeat shared between the earth and her own. Somewhere deep in the mists ahead, the fifth spire waited, but before reaching it, she sensed she must pass through the veil of echoes, a place the wind spoke of with reverence and caution. The veil unfolded like a mirror of memory. Mist rose from the ground in delicate spirals, coiling around crystalline trees whose branches bore fruits that glimmered with tiny constellations. When she touched them, images of past choices flickered across her vision, paths she had not taken, moments she had hesitated, encounters she had overlooked. The echoes were not warnings or regrets, but invitations, each one a lesson, each one a possibility waiting to be remembered and woven into her journey. A soft hum vibrated through the air, not heard but felt, resonating in her chest like the opening of a hidden door inside herself. Suddenly, a movement in the mist caught her attention. Figures emerged, delicate and luminous, neither fully human nor fully ethereal, shifting in form as though they were made of light and thought. They did not speak in words, yet she understood their intention: to guide, to test, to reveal what she was not yet ready to see. They circled her, and with each rotation, fragments of insight flowed into her mind. She perceived the intricate web connecting the spires, the creatures she had met, and the choices that would shape the next steps of her journey. The Vale of Echoes was alive not merely as a place, but as a living memory, reflecting not only what had been but what could yet be, hours or perhaps moments, for time here was unreliable past. As she navigated the shifting paths, streams of liquid light ran along invisible channels, their currents carrying glimpses of other realms. She glimpsed cities suspended in clouds, beings who seemed formed from ideas rather than matter, and landscapes that defied physics yet carried a harmony that resonated with the deepest part of her being. Each vision whispered a question, challenging her perception. Do you see what lies beneath the surface, or only what you hope to see? At the heart of the veil, a pool of water reflected not her image, but the choices she had yet to make. She peered into it and saw multiple versions of herself moving along different paths, some courageous, some cautious, some yielding to fear, some rising to discovery. The reflections shimmered, showing the consequences of each decision not as judgment, but as potential. Alara realized that the veil demanded more than observation. It required understanding, a synthesis of past, present, and future, a recognition that her journey through the spires was inseparable from the choices she carried within. Emerging from the veil, the fifth spire rose before her like a beacon, taller and more intricate than any she had encountered. Its surface shimmered in waves of iridescent light, constantly shifting, revealing hidden patterns that seemed to dance in response to her presence. As she approached, the base of the spire opened into a chamber unlike any other, a vast atrium of floating platforms, each suspended by unseen forces, linked by bridges of light that twisted and turned in labyrinthine configurations. The chamber pulsed with energy, alive with motion and sound she could feel rather than hear. Inside, she encountered the guardian of the fifth spire, a figure robed in cascading threads of silver and sapphire, its form shifting as if composed of water and air. Its eyes glimmered with the depth of 1,000 lifetimes. "You have come far, seeker," it intoned, voice echoing in resonance with the chamber itself. "But the path ahead requires more than courage. You must confront what lies within and without. The spires reveal not only the world's truths, but your own. Can you see beyond desire, beyond fear, and perceive the essence beneath?" Alara took a deep breath, sensing the weight of the challenge. The chamber responded to her hesitation, light twisting and flowing around her like a living river, revealing visions of possibilities she had not yet embraced. She saw herself standing in realms of pure potential, interacting with beings of thought and memory, shaping worlds with intention alone. And with each vision, she understood that the journey through the spires demanded active participation, not mere observation. To proceed, she had to traverse the labyrinth of light. Platforms shifted beneath her steps, bridges bent and reformed, and each choice carried consequences that reverberated instantly throughout the chamber. She felt the pulse of the spire in her veins, guiding her, challenging her, forcing her to act with clarity and intention. Mistakes were not punished, but they left traces, subtle echoes that could alter the path ahead. She learned to move with awareness, synchronizing breath, thought, and action. Each step a meditation, each decision a key unlocking deeper understanding. At the core of the chamber, a crystalline pedestal rose, and atop it hovered a prism of concentrated light. As Alara approached, it refracted her essence into multiple streams, showing not only who she was, but who she could become, reflecting choices not yet made and paths not yet walked. She realized the prism was not merely a test, but a mirror revealing the interconnectedness of intention, action, and consequence. Touching it, she felt a surge of insight, an awakening of perception that allowed her to navigate the labyrinth with grace, aligning mind, heart, and spirit with the subtle energies of the spire. Emerging from the chamber, Alara felt her senses expand. The wind now carried voices not in language, but in vibrations she could feel in her chest, each a thread in a tapestry of understanding. She perceived how each spire was connected, not only in space, but through intention and consciousness, forming a network that transcended ordinary perception. She understood that her journey was a dialogue with these structures, each step a conversation, each choice an offering, and that the knowledge she gained here could ripple outward, touching the world she had left behind in ways subtle and profound. The path forward led to a series of suspended bridges, stretching across a valley of shifting mist and light. Below, the veil of echoes glimmered like a reflection of memory itself, swirling with colors that spoke of forgotten moments and unclaimed possibilities. The sixth spire rose in the distance, its presence commanding yet inviting, and Alara felt a pull stronger than before, a call not only to continue, but to integrate all she had learned. Each step across the bridges carried the weight of awareness, the thrill of discovery, and the delicate responsibility of knowledge that could alter perception itself. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting long, iridescent shadows across the landscape, Alara paused to take in the beauty of the spires. She realized that her journey was no longer just about reaching a destination. It was about understanding the harmony and dissonance of existence, the interplay of choice and consequence, the hidden symphony underlying reality. And in that moment, she felt a certainty she had never known before. The spires were not merely structures of crystal and light, they were awakenings, living conduits of insight, and she had become a participant in a process far larger than herself. the journey ahead promised more revelations, deeper truths, and challenges that would test not only her understanding, but her essence. And yet, with every pulse of the wind, every shimmer of light, and every echo of memory, Alara felt ready. She was a seeker, a witness, a participant in the unfolding story of the Whispering Spires, and she would step forward, one deliberate breath, one mindful step, one awakening at a time. Asterisk. Alara's steps carried her across the final bridge before the sixth spire, suspended over a chasm where mist and light danced like living currents. Every movement seemed to reverberate through the air, the soundless vibrations aligning with her pulse. The valley below was no longer a simple expanse of terrain but a swirling mosaic of possibility, reflecting not only the past she had walked through but choices that had yet to form. Each ripple in the mist seemed to whisper her name, urging her forward, urging her to see beyond the limits of ordinary perception. The sixth spire rose like a frozen flame, its facets shifting with iridescent brilliance, refracting colors that felt impossible yet undeniable. As she approached, she noticed that the surface was not solid but porous, a lattice of glowing veins that pulsed with a rhythm of their own. The spire exhaled a soft resonance that vibrated through her chest, awakening sensations she had not known she carried. Her fingers grazed the surface, and a warmth flowed through her, carrying images not of the world outside, but of the worlds within, memories, dreams, fears, and aspirations, all coexisting in a delicate balance of light and shadow. The chamber inside the spire was circular, its walls shifting in subtle patterns that defied geometry yet felt perfectly natural. Floating platforms spiraled upward, each one connected by filaments of light that responded to thought and intention. Here, she encountered the guardian of the sixth spire, a figure neither young nor old, neither solid nor ethereal, radiating a presence that felt simultaneously comforting and challenging. "You have come far, seeker," it intoned, "but the journey ahead demands more than courage. To proceed, you must learn to trust what you do not see, to move with the currents of possibility rather than the certainty of form." Alara stepped onto the first floating platform, feeling it respond to her presence, tilting and shifting as if alive. She realized that the spire was a living map of her inner consciousness, each platform a fragment of thought, each filament of light a connection between choice and consequence. As she navigated the labyrinthine ascent, visions unfolded around her, moments of kindness she had overlooked, doubts she had ignored, strengths she had yet to claim. Each vision was not merely seen but felt, vibrating through her with a resonance that demanded recognition and integration. Hours passed, though time seemed meaningless in this realm. Alara understood that the spire was less about reaching a summit than harmonizing with its rhythms, aligning her perception with the subtle currents that connected all things. At the center of the spire, suspended above an abyss of shifting light, floated a prism of concentrated essence, refracting not only light but her own consciousness into streams of insight. Touching it, she experienced an expansion of awareness unlike any before. The interconnectedness of life, thought, and intention became palpable, a living web she could sense and navigate. Descending the sixth spire, she noticed that the world outside had changed. Valleys now pulsed with energy that mirrored her own, streams of luminescent water reflecting paths not yet taken, forests vibrating with the unspoken potential of life. The fox of crystalline eyes reappeared, guiding her toward the seventh spire, which shimmered in the distance like a beacon of clarity and challenge intertwined. She felt anticipation and reverence as she approached. This spire promised insight into not only the universe around her but the very essence of the spires themselves. The seventh spire was taller and more intricate than any she had encountered. Its surface seemed to be composed of countless interlocking layers, shifting in patterns that suggested movement, life, and awareness. As she entered, she realized that the chamber within was not static. Platforms floated freely, walls flowed with light, and the air itself carried a soft resonance, as if the spire itself was breathing. The guardian of the seventh spire waited, an entity of shifting geometry and radiant energy, its presence a challenge to her perception. "This spire," it said, "reveals the essence of interconnection. All spires are threads, and you are beginning to see the weave. But to truly awaken, you must move beyond observation and become the weaver yourself." Alara navigated the floating platforms, each step guided by intuition and alignment with the spire's currents. She saw visions of the other spires, past and future travelers, and fragments of possibilities stretching across the expanse of time and space. The prism at the center refracted her essence, revealing choices and consequences as flowing currents of light. Here, she felt the first true sense of unity, self, world, and spires interlaced, not separate but intertwined in an intricate harmony. Emerging from the seventh spire, Alara paused on a platform overlooking the veil. The wind carried whispers from all previous spires, a chorus of knowledge and guidance. She understood that each journey, each choice, each revelation was preparing her for the ultimate purpose, the awakening that connected all spires and all travelers who dared to seek beyond ordinary perception. The eighth spire awaited, taller, brighter, and more alive than any before, promising the next step in her transformation. With the sun dipping behind iridescent peaks, casting multicolored shadows across the landscape, Alara stepped forward, feeling not fear but anticipation. The path ahead would test her understanding, courage, and clarity. The spires had awakened her perception, but the ultimate truth, the harmony underlying all things, was still beyond reach. She carried with her the lessons, the visions, and the resonance of the veil, knowing that the journey was far from over. And as the mist swirled around her, she felt the pulse of the spires guiding her, a silent promise that the greatest revelations were yet to come. Asterisk. The eighth spire loomed above the shifting horizon, a tower of light and crystal that seemed to grow taller with every step Alara took toward it. Unlike the previous spires, this one pulsed with a rhythm that resonated deep within her chest, as though it were alive in a way that transcended structure, intention, or even perception. The wind carried fragments of sound, echoes of past travelers, and whispers of possibilities yet to unfold. Every breath she took seemed to draw the spire closer, every heartbeat synchronizing with the hum that emanated from its crystalline facets. Approaching the base, she noticed that the air shimmered with delicate veils of luminescence, forming patterns that shifted in response to her presence. The ground beneath her feet was a mosaic of reflections, each tile displaying fleeting glimpses of choices she had made, missed opportunities, and moments of clarity that had defined her journey so far. She realized that this spire was not merely a destination, it was a mirror, a convergence of all that had come before, and a portal to understanding the deeper truth of the spires. The entrance opened seamlessly, revealing a chamber that expanded far beyond the spire's visible dimensions. Platforms floated in a vast void of light and color, linked by ribbons of energy that responded to thought, intention, and feeling. The chamber vibrated with a presence she could sense rather than see, a consciousness that was at once gentle and immense. At its center hovered a multifaceted prism, larger than any she had encountered, refracting not only light but layers of reality itself. Approaching it, Alara felt the pulse of all previous spires converge, the resonance of countless choices, lessons, and awakenings intertwining within her own consciousness. The guardian of the eighth spire emerged, an entity of shifting geometry and radiant currents, its voice a symphony of harmonics. "You have come far, seeker," it intoned, "but to ascend fully, you must perceive the threads that connect all spires, all beings, all intentions. The spires exist not to challenge, but to awaken. Do you see the weave of creation itself? And do you understand your role within it?" Alara paused, feeling the weight and brilliance of the question. The chamber responded, projecting visions of the spires, each one a conduit of thought, choice, and possibility. She saw herself as part of this intricate tapestry, her intentions intertwining with those of unseen travelers, past and future, forming patterns she could influence yet never fully control. The prism pulsed, inviting her closer, and she realized that the spires were not a linear path but a network, a living architecture of consciousness, and she was now an integral part of its flow. Navigating the platforms, she reached the center and touched the prism. Light cascaded through her, fracturing into infinite streams that carried knowledge and insight. She understood, suddenly and profoundly, that every spire had been a step toward this awakening, the first for recognition, the second for courage, the third for perception, the fourth for integration, the fifth for harmony, the sixth for awareness, the seventh for interconnection, and now the eighth for synthesis. The spires were not merely structures, they were living teachers, guiding those who dared to see beyond the ordinary toward understanding the hidden symmetry of existence. The chamber began to shift, showing glimpses of realities layered atop one another. Alara saw cities suspended in light, rivers flowing in reverse yet carrying life, beings formed of pure thought walking among structures of impossible geometry. She realized that the spires bridged perception and creation, memory and possibility, intention and manifestation. Each step she had taken, each choice, each act of awareness had led her here, preparing her to comprehend not only the world around her, but the fabric of reality itself. Emerging from the chamber, she felt a profound clarity. The eighth spire had revealed the essence of unity. All spires, all experiences, all travelers were threads in a grand tapestry, and she was now a weaver as much as a seeker. The ninth and 10th spires, though visible in the distance, no longer carried the same tension. They were not obstacles but invitations to deepen understanding, to integrate and embody the truths she had now glimpsed. The path forward was illuminated not by light alone, but by perception, intention, and resonance. As she stepped into the glowing expanse leading to the ninth spire, Alara sensed the culmination of her journey approaching. The whispers of the wind, the pulse of the land, the resonance of the spires themselves converged into a singular hum that vibrated through her being. She understood that the journey through the Whispering Spires was more than discovery, it was transformation. And with each step, each breath, each mindful choice, she moved closer to a truth that would ripple beyond herself, into the realms she had yet to touch and the lives she had yet to influence. The ninth spire rose, suspended in a mist of prismatic light, and she felt the hum intensify. She knew that within its chamber lay the culmination of all awakenings, a revelation that would illuminate not just the path she had walked, but the intricate web connecting all spires and all seekers. And as the final rays of the sun scattered across the celestial veil, Alara stepped forward, ready to embrace the synthesis, to become both participant and witness, observer and creator, in the unfolding story of the Whispering Spires.